I once had a friend tell me that life is a collection of moments. Moments where time collapses on itself and ceases to exist. Moments where you feel so much joy, it almost feels unreal. Moments when you question why you're here, what your purpose is. Moments when you really start to contemplate what your role is in this vast stretch of the fabric that is humanity. And I think the moments are what allow us to go deeper. And it's in between those spaces of A and B where we really learn ourselves, our true nature, and really what we're doing with our time here. So this week I wanted to dive right into the idea of ego death and spiritual liberation and really unearthing your soul, your innate life force. We tend to attach ourselves to identities. So I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a student, I'm a worker, I'm an artist, and you are all of these things. But ego death is a concept I've kind of been looking into, and it's like, well, what happens when you don't have that thing, that external thing to identify with? What are you then? What were you before you had a name and went to school, learned to speak, write, read, all of these things? What were you when you were just you? And how can you go back to that innocent state of not knowing all that there is to know, and at the same time knowing oneself at your core and knowing who you are, what your values are, what you believe in. And there are two phenomena that kind of correlate with this idea of ego death, and that would be out-of-body experiences, so OBEs, and NDEs, so near-death experiences. And I cannot say I've ever experienced either of these, but listening to the testaments of people who have gone through this and have had the ability to really, like the saying goes, see their life flashing before their eyes, or really have that face to face with something greater than oneself, it really allows you to humble yourself and realize the fragile nature of life. I know I always say this, but everything in life is a gift, not a given. And so having these kind of experiences where you're on the brink of something, or everything you thought you knew just folds in on itself. Maybe that's the loss of a job, or a loved one, or something not working out in your favor. So maybe that's a failed attempt at a book getting published, or a submission getting rejected. And it's in these moments where you have two options. You can really just let that be you, let that failure attach to yourself, or you can recognize it as, okay, there's this part that didn't work out. There's this part of me that's mourning, that's grieving, that's not feeling seen or appreciated, and I'm still here. I'm still here, and not getting so fixated on the idea of being validated from the outside in, and really learning how to be with ourselves. Because I think in this day and age, it's so easy to not be with yourself. The idea of escapism, dissociating, submerging yourself in work, in career development, in service of others. I always encourage, of course, heartful service to the collective consciousness, but what happens when you lose touch with that is you? You know, we're always taught how to feel for our pulse at major parts of our body, when you can literally feel your blood coursing through your veins. And we have kind of lost touch with that. We've lost the pulse that is our life force to external conditionings, social molds, and constraints, and ways of control and regulation? And what would it mean to run a little freer, run a little farther, do something you thought you couldn't do, or let go of a hat you've been wearing for so long and tied it to your identity? Because we all have an ego. I'm not saying an ego is bad or that you shouldn't have one. I'm rather suggesting that there are parts of our being that are being almost coded with this ego to the point where our truest self can't really breathe because we've just layered it on and layered it on. And the more and the longer that you do it for, the less you're able to see through. It becomes kind of muddled and hard to really detect, is this me or is this my ego? And so really questioning that and getting quiet means sitting with the thoughts that are percolating and constantly just going through your mind and really wondering, is this me? Is this what my truest self, my purest life form, my heart center, is this in alignment with me? Or is it the noise? Because we live in a world where noise is the norm. To get quiet raises suspicion, and people don't like the quiet. People don't like to sit with themselves. There's almost this adverse reaction to slowing down, to meditating, to being with your breath. But what would it mean to do that? And how can you let go? What are you holding on to? And how can you trace back to that part of yourself that just wants to breathe?